Welcome back to the fourth episode of the Adster Podcast. I have with me today Ranganath, who's my co-founder and our CTO at Adster. Hi Ranga, glad to have you here finally. So Ranga, you've worn many hats, right? A couple of times we've been together as well. You built an app, Time to Enjoy.
Yeah. Way back 2009.
Way back in 2009, scaled it. You've been at Trapeze building, insights for app developers based on data that they send back. Now at Adster, building an ad stack for publishers. Mm-hmm. So, it's been a fairly checkered journey in that sense. And
I wouldn't say it was a checkered journey. I would say it is end-to-end journey right now, right? Because I started with an app, and then I did somewhere in between between an app and a publisher. Now I am directly working with the publisher. So I would say it's actually finishing the ad stack that way. Yeah.
What I meant by checkered is that the entire, you've seen it all in that sense, right?
Okay.
So just curious from your perspective, though, we do speak very often, but then, what does it feel like and what parts really stand out for you and what is it that you would consider memorable within this journey? And this is more to get a sense of, for your perspective as you've gone through these various parts of your career in wearing different hats.
Well, if I go back to 2009, right, when we first did the first app, right, so we thought about monetization, but we didn't think about monetization the way it exists today, right? So it was, about 2009, 2010, iPhone and Android were just in the second or third version. Right now, they're probably in the 15th and the 24th or 25th versions of them. So we thought about ads, but we didn't have a solution then really like what we have for programmatic or for direct today.
Right.
And then when we went to Planetworks, people were already monetizing all that stuff, and then they needed more data to monetize better, to do a better yield optimizer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So now, Adster right now is basically we are hitting the nail in that sense. We are basically going after all the publishers who generally want to do ad monetization. Either they're starting monetization, or they're stuck in between, or they want to get more revenue, or they want to get more juice out of this thing. And there are like hundreds of solutions out there in the market today.
Yeah.
Which is kind of confusing in terms of, okay, what do I choose? Can I choose AdMob? Can I choose GAM? Can I choose, my app is based on something else? Can I choose Programmatic? Because there is always coming and selling something. Somebody's coming and selling something to me, and I am not sure which one to pick.
Yeah. No, I know. So in a couple of the earlier episodes, for example, when I was speaking to Rajiv as well, and even Ketan, we talked about the challenges that, most of the app publishers go through in sort of unraveling or demystifying this entire monetization space, because it doesn't come to you naturally, right? When you're building an app, you're building it for certain purposes. Either you're building a content app or you're building a commerce app for transactions. And then somewhere along the way, you realize that there is an opportunity to monetize through ads also. But it is so complex as a domain that it makes it, I think, in a way, people need to get a separate PhD or a doctorate just for that. But I know we are on a mission so that they don't have to do that and we do it for them. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to get an understanding from you. You've been talking to so many apps now and helping them, streamline, make things better.
Mm-hmm. Actually, there are two parts to the problem, right? So there are two engines running in a company, right? Mm-hmm. One is the developer of the app, if they have a decent scale, or it is a pure app guy, right?
Right.
There are like multiple parts, or it could be a big enterprise which are doing something and they have their own complex solution. Right?
Correct.
So if you start from a developer who is just one or two developers building their own app, and for some reason they've gone viral and they have enough.
Actually, we come across a lot of those examples, right?
Correct. So there are enough daily active users, they can make $5,000 to $10,000 a month. Sometimes it is a side gig for them.
Right.
So, but the problem with them is they don't understand the ads ecosystem. They know one thing, and then there are all these people coming and trying to sell that to them.
True.
And they don't think they have the time to understand this ecosystem. Like you said, it requires probably a PhD.
Yeah.
And I don't know if PhD is actually going to help, but yeah, so that is one set of the problem, right? Or if you go to a mid-scale thing, right, there is a product manager or a monetization guy who is pushing the developers try this one out. Somebody's come and sold the monetization guy saying, okay, try my network, or try this one. You want to get better yield or you want to get more. So then the monetization guy pushes the developer. The developer has no clue what needs to be done.
Right.
The monetization doesn't understand what are the complexities of it. He only wants more revenue.
Correct.
So that is another set of problems.
Yeah.
Or if you go to enterprise, then there is another set of problems where they've built their own complex ecosystem and there are not many people who understand that ecosystem.
Right.
Or
right.
the person who has built that ecosystem is already gone. The knowledge is already gone with him. There is not enough real documentation people build around what my waterfall looks like or what my hybrid looks like or what have I done before. And it is a very, very iterative process. Right? So I tried something today, it worked. 3 months later, it stopped working. So I have to understand why it stopped working. Or then I want to try something new. So that process, sometimes there is a 6 months to 1 year journey. And after 1 year journey, you probably are going to get a reset because somebody changed something else and somebody put a new law, some CCPA law has come or GDPR has come or Google has changed something in their own world or AppLovin has come and changed something in their own world. And or there's a new network that is coming in or the rage I think right now is OTT and CTV and all the videos that are coming in. How do you do the video one? So the complexity never ends and I think it is just going to get more and more complex.
Yeah. Also, I think what is striking is that, and from our own experience now, having worked with multiple different publishers, that no two publishers have done things the same way or have tried the same things. But I think from you have like a ringside seat and you actually get to look to peek in under the hood and see what they have built initially, and then in some ways also help them navigate, away from maybe that complexity by looking at something simpler. So I wanted to get a sense from yourself. So when you look at this and having worked with multiple such publishers, what strikes you as the few common things that they seem to be going wrong with when it comes to monetization? And again, I know there are many, but there could be just a few that stand out more explicitly for you. But would love to hear that.
I think from an overall, like I explained, right, once a single developer company or a 2 developer company or a mid-size or an enterprise, the commonality that I see is there is no documentation, there is no clear way of saying, okay, this is the way to do it or this is not the way to do it. And most of them generally struggle understanding the system.
Yeah.
So I think that is common across all the 3. We have worked with one of the decent big size applications and I see the same problem there also. Right. The developers come and gone. Somebody had done something before. Now the current, the product for the monetization or the developer, the chain link is broken. So and it is pretty much impossible to understand. And then ads is not really 100%. There's a lot of black boxes involved. Because the moment you are talking to a network, you don't know what is happening behind the network. You're only waiting for an ad to get filled or not filled. So sometimes you don't know whether you
don't even know where the problem is.
Where the problem is, right? So whether your impression is filled or is it been recorded. So like if you go back there, right? It starts from making an ad request, then showing an impression, then understanding somebody clicked that ad and then recording all of this in some system and then understanding going back to when that ad was shown and when the metrics happened. So there's a huge gap there also. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily I showed one ad and I clicked, I got an impression, I did all this stuff and then the report shows the same thing. The report shows something completely different.
Right.
And I don't know whether you can call it a life cycle like that, but it is a complex solution. It is difficult to understand some of it.
Yeah. No, I think it'll also be great to get into a developer's head, right? I think there's, we'll also get Akshat and Shivansh on the call to basically explain what they think, how they look at it from their perspective when they go in and they start sort of baking ads in or what they were doing. So I think that would be interesting as a perspective as well to understand like what goes on in their heads, how do they approach it, where do they start, and therefore, what challenges they encounter and then how do they solve for those challenges. Of course, we are trying to solve for many of those today out of the box so that it becomes far simpler, far easier for others that follow the same path.
Correct. So there's, like I said, there is one aspect to the developer which Shivansh and Akshat are going to talk about. The other aspect is like if you say go to a mid or an enterprise, right? It's the monetization person or the product manager wants to make changes without having to go to an engineering team.
Yeah.
So that is another problem that generally comes.
Right.
Like he wants to try an experiment and he doesn't know how to run this experiment.
Yeah.
So how do you address these challenges?
Right.
That's another factor, right? So not necessarily you are increasing the run rate, you're increasing the field rate, you're increasing the revenue, but you're also trying to say, okay, what experiment worked and how did I measure the experiment and how do I actually run the experiment, right? So there are 10 things before you actually could do before you can say, okay, this one actually worked or this one did not work. And then there are other different variables from the market itself. Like sometimes I think maybe in a certain months, the impressions are higher, the demand is higher, or sometimes in a month, the demand is lower. So your experiment needs to account for those aspects as well, right? So you cannot solve for a developer or you cannot just solve for a monetization or for a product guy. You have to actually think from one end to the other end so that the developer is comfortable doing something like this. You have to understand the dependencies of the app, right? Because like I think maybe Shivansh is going to explain because there is an Unity engine, there is a React Native app, and there is a Flutter, and then there is Android Native, certain versions of Android Native, and then there are all these 25 other networks that have their own solutions. So like I think maybe it's still an N cross N matrix there. Welcome to the hooked, cooked, and burnt world of AdTech. And I have with me Akshat here today, who is one of our senior developers basically works for publishers in that sense, although he works on an SDK, but I think he still works for a publisher. So I'll let Akshat introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Akshat. I have been in the app world since 2020, working on Android apps, publishing it. Never have I worked with ads since past 1 year. I have worked with ads, but since then I have not worked. And just getting into the ropes of how a publisher thinks and what are the challenges he faces or he or she faces. Yeah.
Okay, so actually, so now since you said you have worked on apps for the last 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And then you have never done ads.
Yeah.
Right. So now if I ask you this question, I ask you this because now since you actually are a publisher and a developer of an SDK which the publishers use.
Okay.
So what is the difference that you see? You see this is actually beneficial in terms of, or the question I would rather frame is, how easy is it for a developer to use all the different solutions that are out there in the market today to publish ads? So now you've been an app developer, right? So what you've done 5-10 apps right now, I think, right? Which are actually on the Play Store. And I'm sure some of them would have probably hit 100,000
Easily
by now, right? So now if I would ask you to go back and think about 1 year back before you started with Adster, your monetization person or your revenue person, I mean, there are multiple roles that people play there. So they would come back and ask, I want to show an ad here. Right? Some might have the clear clarity saying, okay, I want to show ads here, 5 different places. Or you might get another person who might say, I want to show ads and I want to start making money. So where would you start?
Yeah, definitely. If I have, 100,000 users on app, I would definitely think about monetizing, right? Using ads. So firstly would be what type of ad. So searching various ad partners are there right now. So that would first confuse me a little bit. But I would eventually go with what, the most used one right now. That is, I think so, AdMob. So someone would go to AdMob, then, see what kind of ads are there. You would start with the basic, render a simple ad, right? And then go with, okay, let's see next. This would take around 3-6 months, right? Even to grasp with what type of ads are there, how to show them, how eCPM works, reporting on it, how is it looking, to get a simple grasp, like you push it to just 5%, all those things, right?
Now you said it takes about 3 months or 2.5 months to get an understanding of, I mean, implementation wise, you probably do it a week or something, right? But to really see
the result
and understand
analyze it,
all the results, to see the metrics, how much money you are making. So what would be the next step, right?
Next step would be another ad partner maybe, or doing it in a waterfall with, say, because there might be an ad, there might not be an ad, right?
Okay.
So when there is no ad, what to do? Do we go and try for another ad, or do we try on a different partner sort of ad?
So would you agree that this whole thing is generally becoming a very iterative
Yeah,
process,
so
right?
it
You
becomes-
start with 3 months and then you did one network and then you added another network and then the complexity became more.
So with each and every network that I add, the complexity increases by tenfold. So
Okay.
so each and every case you have to handle. It's like permutation. If you add another, then there are 5 partners. So there is 20 possibilities of 20 possibilities of which one gives an ad, which one does not give an ad, all those things.
Welcome, Shant.
Hi Ranga.
So now I spoke to Akshat before and then we generally talked about the developer challenges, right? And then now you've been a Unity engine game developer, you've developed apps on Unity, you've developed apps on React Native, you've developed apps on Unreal Engine, right? So all that is suddenly becomes a different ecosystem, right? From in terms of an ads
Completely,
monetization. So what are the challenges that you've seen in actually getting solutions for these ones, right? So because from a normal native Android application to a Unity, to a Cocos Creator, to a React Native, or maybe the new ones are Flutter these days, the challenges are multiple different, right?
Yeah.
So now, can you address some of those challenges, right? How did you address them?
Being a Unity developer and also working on other platforms, I would say like it's an n cross n matrix of the permutation and combinations, possibilities around. Like, let's say a certain guy who works in Unity is very comfortable working on the editor, Unity editor, and finishing up the game, working on the game is a kind of easy thing for him. But if we get into the ads market, ads implementation, where to get an ad, which partner to get an ad from, and basically how to utilize that ad, let's say rewarded ad. How do you know when to reward someone, when not to? How to implement, which adapter to implement, which ad partner to implement. Everyone has a different implementation. Everyone goes for different interfaces. There is no generalized format for implementing all the partners yet as of now. So we basically have been seeing a lot of challenges until now, using different partners, making different implementation, different interfaces for everyone. Everyone has a different latency, everyone has different dependencies. Some work with one, some doesn't work with other. That's why I said it first that it's an n cross n matrix.
Yeah. Okay, so knowing this n cross n matrix and there are like unlimited number of permutations and combinations with respect to Android, iOS, different versions of Unity, different versions of Cocos Creator.
Yeah.
So do you really think this is a bigger challenge for a game developer or for a React Native developer?
Obviously, it's a very time-consuming process at first. Secondly, being a developer, there is no actual one-stop solution in the market which I can implement. One, I can get advantages of multiple SDK partners, a simple interface with all the implementation, and that partner does everything for me, or that tool does everything for me.
Having been there and done, seen this journey with most publishers, what is that one tip or pro tip, if I can call it that you'd like to give to anybody that is starting out their ads journey?
Since I'm being part of Adster, I am going to have to say you try our solution.
Right.
Because we have actually iterated through hundreds of apps, understand all of this stuff together and try to put that all in a box. I'm not saying this because we have built it. I'm just saying because it works and it is developer friendly. It's a product manager friendly. It is an operations guy friendly. And all the experience of me, Rajiv, Girish, Ketan, all of them over the last 10 years has been put into this one. So, that's the way I would do it. If I had a tool 10 years back, something like this, I wouldn't be worried about understanding ads. I would have never gotten into an ads ecosystem. So you just think about when I went back 10 years, right? I didn't have a solution, something like this, right?
Right.
So maybe one of the reasons why I'm building this, right? Or why we are building this in this sense.
Yeah. Oh, great. Fantastic. Thanks for coming on the podcast, and we look forward to having you on more later. It was great having Ranga on this edition of the podcast. That brings us to the end of this episode 4. And we look forward to bringing you more engaging content like this, in the next couple of episodes. Thank you for watching.